I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it is cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Hit the road in overdrive. This city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. Whenever let me go this time. I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you wanna be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody. What's up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome back to the Two Tone Talk podcast. Better late than never, right? A little later on this episode than usual. I've been driving back from vacation in the mountains all day. Just got in and wanted to do my Monday episode 53. And if I sound horrible, it's because I'm a little under the weather, a little sick, losing my voice, got a little cough going on, so bear with me today, because there's a lot to say, isn't there? As the Tennessee Titans fall to 3-6 on the season, losing at Tampa Bay 20-6. For the third time this year, they do not score a touchdown. That doesn't include the other 3 times this season where they only scored 1 touchdown. And it was another horrendous showing by the Titans. And I'm a firm believer in the fact when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. This team has shown us time and time again they're just not good. And we have continued, if you're like me, you have continued to come back every week hoping that something will change, hoping that they will be better. Sometimes they throw us a bone like they did against the Chargers or the Bengals or the Falcons, but usually we get what we saw yesterday. If somebody shows you who they are, believe them. There's a life lesson in that, by the way. If it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks, it's a duck. The Tennessee Titans are a bad team. They're bad. And no amount of tuning in every week with hope that things are going to get better is going to change that. Right now, they're a bad team. And a lot of people pointing fingers and pointing fingers at coaches and different players and whatnot. And I guess you reserve the right to do that. We're fans of the team. The team's not good. You can be mad about whatever you want to be mad at. Okay? Be mad at whoever you want to be mad at. Fine. But I've been driving today. Been driving for the past 5 hours. And so I've had time to really think this over. I've had time today driving down the road to think about how I feel about the Titans, how I feel about Vrabel, how I feel about the team, and where it stands right now. And I've come to a few conclusions. Number one, the first conclusion I've come to is that we were all wrong. We were wrong. We were told all offseason by people in the media, by, I don't know, people we know, that the Titans were probably not going to be any good this year. We were told that. We were told, hey, Titans are probably not going to be too good. But we said no. They're going to surprise people. They're going to come out this year and they're going to shock people by how good they are. And we were wrong. And they were right. The Titans are not any good. Maybe it's because we're fans. Maybe it's because we're fans. We came into this season with so much hope that good things were going to happen and that we were going to still be competitive like we'd been. We thought wrong. And everyone else was right, and we were wrong. This team, not only is the roster worse than we probably thought, but it's much worse than we probably thought. It's a bad roster. And I read the stat last week. I'm not going to go dig it up again, but nobody has played more undrafted players this year than Tennessee Titans. We've got a team full of undrafted players. We've got a team full of Dollar Tree free agents that we went out and got that nobody else was trying to get. That's what our team mostly consists of. Every now and then you have a Derrick Henry or a DeAndre Hopkins or a Jeffrey Simmons, but for the most part, this team consists of undrafted guys and Dollar Tree free agents. And, you know, I've been saying all year, oh, we've totally revamped the offensive line. Yeah, in the sense that there are new guys in there than what we had last year, but it's not like we have just brought in the best of the best to replace the guys from last year. We've brought in guys like Andre Dillard and Chris Hubbard who nobody else was trying to get. They had already failed at other teams, and we tried to bring them in on 1-year prove-it deals to see if maybe they could revive their careers, and they haven't. That's what this year was. Those, with the exception of maybe Arden Key and DeAndre Hopkins, every other offseason pickup was a 1-year, prove it, you failed somewhere else, but we're going to bring you in and give you a chance to prove that you can be a guy for us going forward. And in the case of Andre Dillard and Chris Hubbard, they have not. You know, everybody talks about Dillard, everybody talks about the left tackle position, and I get that, but don't let the rest of this offensive line off the hook. The whole offensive line, except for Peter Skoronski, is not very good. I'll give Aaron Brewer credit. Aaron Brewer probably does more good than bad. He's probably more consistent than some of these other guys. I would say Skoronski, rookie, first-round pick. He's held his own for the most part this year. Brewer has probably done more right than wrong, but, obviously we were without Brunskill yesterday. But, it's the tackles. It's the tackles, man. The tackles are just not good. And I'm including Nicholas Petit-Frere. I know he's done for the year. I hate to kick a guy when he's down, but I include him in that, man. He's just not good. I've been championing the cause of Dylan Radins on this podcast. I've been saying we got to get Radins in there. He does such a good job. Well, I think we might have seen yesterday why Radins hasn't been playing more. Because if he was better than Dillard, it wasn't by much. If he was better than Dillard, it wasn't by much. So, the offensive line is bad. And we came into this year, we knew we were cutting ties with Taylor Lewan. We knew Dennis Daly wasn't the guy. We knew we were cutting ties with Ben Jones. We knew we were probably cutting ties with Nate Davis, who we couldn't afford. He now plays for the, I believe, the Chicago Bears. But, we knew we were going to be bringing in a new offensive line. We went and got Skoronski, but other than that, we got 2 tackles from Dollar General free agency. And you get what you get. You get what you get. Evan says, I saw a fun little stat today. It's the most pass blocking snaps by skill position in the NFL. Tight end is Trevon Wesco. Running backs Tyjae Spears. Wide receivers Nick Westbrook-Akine. So I guess what he's saying is the Titans' offensive line is getting the most help from tight ends, running backs, and wide receivers of any team in the league. Meaning that guys like Westbrook-Akine, Wesco, and Tyjae Spears are routinely having to help our tackles primarily block. And we're still getting killed in the backfield. There's no way around it. This offensive line is the worst part of the team. They are, it's the first thing that's got to be addressed. I'm not saying it's the only thing that's got to be addressed, but it's the first thing that's got to be addressed. You can't operate an offense with a line like this. You can't. And there were a ton of people who said if we would just get rid of Ryan Tannehill and replace him, everything would be okay. That was naive. That was naive. Not saying we shouldn't have benched Tannehill, not saying we shouldn't have gone with Levis. But if you thought Tannehill was the only thing holding this offense back, you got to be kidding me. I hope you're watching, because it doesn't matter who's in there. This offensive line is bad. They are bad. The tackles primarily are bad. And it hinders the entire offense from being able to do anything. People want to talk about Tim Kelly, criticize his play calling. Listen, I'm not ready to champion the cause of offensive coordinator Tim Kelly, but I'm not ready to fire him either, because what plays are you supposed to call? Well, what are you supposed to do? It hinders everything. The running, the passing, everything is hindered. Again, if you're just tuning in, I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize for my voice, but it hinders everything when your offensive line is this bad. And, I know, maybe they could do some stuff with, trying to roll Levis out, get him on the move to try to help him out. But, you can't do that every play. At some point, you've got to be able to drop back and pass. And they can't. Because this offensive line is so putrid. And that brings me to Vrabel. Let me get a sip of water because I know I gotta sound pretty rough. Vrabel ain't going nowhere. Brody Ledford said, "Why did we get rid of Lewan? I know he's been injured, but he's better than any offensive line." Well, for one thing, Taylor Lewan has lost a ton of weight, and he looks like he would play wide receiver right now. I don't think anybody would put Taylor Lewan on their offensive line right now because he's lost so much weight. But, a lot of people ragged on Lewan when he was here. I sure miss him because I think we got spoiled because we had a left tackle who was pretty good for like 7 or 8 years, and we didn't even have to worry about it. Oh, man. But back to Vrabel. Vrabel ain't going nowhere. That's what I've been thinking about on the drive home. Because a lot of people are like, whoa, Vrabel's on the hot seat, we got to fire him. Nothing's ever going to get better with Vrabel as the coach. And I was thinking about that on the way home. Like, is that the right way to feel? Is that the answer? Should we consider moving on from Vrabel? Let me first of all say, whether you think we should or not, the Titans aren't. The only person whose opinion matters is Amy Adams Strunk, and I think she loves Vrabel. He ain't going nowhere, okay? But let me tell you, if I were going to defend Vrabel, if you told me, if I was a lawyer and you said, go defend Vrabel and his coaching, here's what I would say. I would say, this roster's not any good. You can bring any coach in here, and this roster's not going to give you results. And I would say that's a fair point. That'd be the first thing I would say. This roster's not any good, and you could bring Vince Lombardi in here, and he's not going to be able to coach these guys to a winning record. And that's a fair point. It is a bad roster, okay? But it's more than that. The Tennessee Titans, their organization, made it clear last year how they felt about why the roster was the way it was. They made it clear when they fired John Robinson in the middle of the season. Okay? They fired John Robinson in the middle of the year, and I know they dressed it up all nice, and they tried to say, we appreciate John, and he did such a great job for us. But in reality, that was them saying, hey, the roster sucks, and the reason the roster sucks is because of him. Because he traded A.J. Brown. Because he drafted Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, Treylon Burks in the first round, and none of them have panned out. Treylon's the only one who's even in the vicinity of panning out. And he's still a good ways away. They pretty much looked at him, said he's the guy who did this. He made all these bad draft picks. He traded all these good players. He let all these people go. He's the guy in charge of the roster at the end of the day, and he's the reason this roster's bad. And you know what? I can't argue with him. He is the main reason why. We are reaping what John Robinson has sown here. Absolutely. And so, you got to look at this past offseason. I know we live in a society of instant gratification, but the Titans weren't in a position to drastically improve this roster last offseason. They didn't have enough money to work with. They did what they could in getting guys like Arden Key and DeAndre Hopkins, but outside of those two guys, they got a bunch of Dollar Tree free agents. Alshire has been mostly good, so I won't include him in that. But, the Titans weren't in a position this past offseason to go out and make a bunch of huge moves due to cap space and all that. So they tried to do everything they could to try and improve the team last offseason and ran Carthon's first offseason, but they're going to be in a much better position this upcoming offseason to improve the roster because they're going to have the most cap space in the NFL, and they're probably going to have a top 10 draft pick. So, I mean, and we're not going to talk about the draft right now because we'll have plenty of time to talk about that later, but if I'm defending Vrabel, I'm saying, hey, they feel as though all of this is John Robinson's fault. Vrabel is trying to coach John Robinson's guys. This is the roster John Robinson built. One off season of Vrabel and Carthon running it is not enough to overcome it. And that's stuff that Vrabel's never going to say in a press conference, guys. Vrabel's never going to say, he's never going to get up there and say, yeah, John kind of screwed us over. He's never going to do that. He's never going to say that. He's going to get up there and he's got to say, we got to play better, we got to coach better. But in reality, behind closed doors, I would imagine somebody is saying, wow, John Robinson really screwed us over with his draft picks and with the guys he got rid of and the guys that he brought in. I mean, it set this team back. And it's going to take time to rebuild it. I think you and I came in to this season and felt like the Titans had a better roster than they do. Because we're fans. We assume that Andre Dillard and Chris Hubbard are just going to come in here and revive their careers. Because we're fans. We just assume that this defense is going to be better than it's ever been. We just assume that Treylon Burks is going to come in and be the next A.J. Brown. We just assume that because we're fans. It's what we do. But in reality, it is setting in, the realization is set in, this isn't a good roster. And, you know, this isn't it's a terrible offensive line. But don't lose sight of the fact of how terrible our secondary is as well. The offensive line is the first thing that's got to be acknowledged, and not too far behind it is the secondary. Without Byard, they're even worse. I mean, it's just awful. Mike Evans was running routes on air yesterday, okay? And so the secondary's got to be fixed. We got a lot of money in a pass rush that's not getting home. I don't know. I mean, that's an area of the team that is supposed to be good, but it's not. And I don't know what the deal is, but there's a lot wrong right now. And I feel sorry for Will Levis because, you know, you see what Houston has done. Look at the offensive line that Houston has assembled. And is it any wonder that C.J. Stroud is doing what he's doing in Houston right now? He's got a really good offensive line. He's got a left tackle that they're paying millions upon millions of dollars to keep him clean. It's a much better situation. Tennessee, to be fair, they didn't even plan on playing Will Levis this year. They probably planned on him sitting on the bench behind Tannehill all year, but of course, now he's in there and he's got nobody to protect him. He's got a bunch of guys dropping passes. That's another thing. Wide receivers. Westbrook-Ikine dropped a pass right in his arms yesterday. Chigokonkwo dropped a touchdown. Chigokonkwo, I think, dropped another one. He's been doing that all year. Phillips dropped one. I mean, there's been guys dropping passes left and right. Now, here's a complaint about Vrabel. Here's a concern about Vrabel that I think holds water. Feels like none of these players are progressing. Nobody's getting better. I know it's easy to say when you're losing, it's easy to be down about everything, but does it not feel like nobody's getting better? These guys that the Titans have drafted who showed promise. I mean, Chigokonkwo has completely regressed. Name one player who's better off now than they were a year ago? Maybe Tier Tart, and he's getting ready to leave. But, I mean, I guess Kyle Phillips for the simple fact that he's active and not on injured reserve. But Treylon Burks is not better off than he was a year ago. Chigokonkwo is not better off than he was a year ago. I mean, none of these guys are. Rashad Weaver's not better off than he was a year ago. He's inactive. So, yeah, that concerns me. That concerns me that we have players that we've drafted who showed promise who are all regressing. I don't understand. Maybe it's because, offensively, when your offensive line is as bad as the Titans is, it hinders anybody from being able to do anything. I don't know. But this is a bad team. It's a bad roster, and we came into the season with unfounded hope that for some reason it was all going to work out because we're fans and that's what we do, and I get that, but we were wrong. And everybody else was right. This is a bad team. This is a bad roster. There is a great opportunity this offseason to fix a lot of it. Through the money that they have and the draft position they're probably going to have, there's a great opportunity to start really fixing this stuff. And that's why Vrabel's not going anywhere. They feel like they have identified the problem. The problem was John Robinson. This roster that he created is not good enough. So we got rid of him, and now we've got to give Carthon and Vrabel time to fix what he broke. Because I've been saying for weeks, is Vrabel totally innocent in this stuff that John Robinson did? Is he totally innocent in the trade of A.J. Brown and the other stuff that happened that was so stupid, the bad draft picks? How much does Vrabel have to do with that? Man, I don't know. That's not me insinuating that he was just as guilty as Robinson. As a matter of fact, like I said, there were reports that came out after Robinson's firing that a lot of people felt like Vrabel's voice wasn't being heard by Robinson. That Robinson was just making decisions on his own without consulting anybody or without listening to anybody else's opinion. Okay? Whatever the case, I'm telling you, they are going to give Vrabel and Rand Carthon the opportunity in their mind to fix what John Robinson broke. They're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire him for not having the correct kind of body language on the sideline. They're not going to fire him for not being excited enough in the tunnel. They're not going to fire him for the things he says in press conferences. They're going to look at their roster and say, our roster's not any good. It's John Robinson's fault. Vrabel, Rand, fix it. That's what they're going to do. And we're going to say, and they're going to have their chance to do it. Again, what an opportunity they have this offseason. $100 million in cap space, a high top 10 draft pick. They're going to have an opportunity to fix it. Presumably, you've got your quarterback that you're going to go with going forward. So they're going to have an opportunity to fix what's broke. And at the end of the day, you guys that want Vrabel gone, you're either going to be right or you're going to be wrong. I mean, time will tell. But it is unrealistic for anybody to think that Mike Vrabel is going to be fired. It's not going to happen. I would be shocked. And if I have to come on here and eat my words, I will. But I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Because, there's something to be said for what is any coach supposed to do with this roster. Okay, good point. Fair. So give them a chance to fix it and see what they do. But Justin in the chat brings up an interesting point. He said there's an argument that Vrabel should have not backed down on the A.J. Brown trade. Yeah, sure. But, I mean, there's two things. The day before A.J. was traded, Vrabel went on the Rich Eisen show, and you all know what he said. He said, as long as I'm the coach of this team, A.J. Brown ain't getting traded. He said it with complete confidence. Vrabel never is that open and honest in interviews, but he was that day, and it came back to bite him. Because a little over 24 hours later, John Robinson made him look like an idiot because he did the very thing that Vrabel said they would never do, and they traded A.J. Brown. So, I mean, that is some evidence to point to the fact that maybe John Robinson was kind of a tyrant in running this roster, that he didn't care about what Vrabel said, that he didn't care about what anybody said. Now, the person I would look at would be Amy Adams-Strunk. I'd be like, okay, you're the only person here with more power than John. You could have done something. Maybe Vrabel could have gone to Amy like a kid tattling on another kid, been like, hey, he's trying to trade AJ Brown, But we've all seen the clip from when AJ was traded of how disgusted Vrabel looked. He knew. He knew what they'd just done. So I'm telling you guys, they're going to give Vrabel and Carthon a chance to fix what John Robinson broke. I don't think they're going to have Derrick Henry around anymore after this year. I think he's gone. Some key pieces they've relied on, like Danico Autry, he's going to be gone. Tier Tart, he's probably going to be gone. We already know Byard's gone. We need a safety because Molden ain't cutting it back there. There's work to be done. But what do we do for now? The Titans are 3-6. They've got like 8 games left. What do we do? I don't have it in me to root for them to lose. And you know what? And it's good to see Titanators and Sports in the chat. If they had just won yesterday, Jacksonville got killed. Could have picked up a game on them. But it's not a good team, guys. It's not a good team. Bad offensive line, bad secondary. And, maybe they can get Brunskill back this week at right guard, and that'll help. But we need somebody at the tackles. NPF's out of there for the year. So you got to stick with Hubbard at right tackle. At left tackle, Dillard's in concussion protocol. I'd rather just put the rookie guy in from Maryland that they drafted and just see how he does. But, they're going to get Levis killed. They're going to get Levis killed if they don't fix this offensive line. And the offensive line is the biggest problem with this team. If you were to make a list, problems with the Tennessee Titans, offensive line, number 1. Probably followed by the secondary. Secondary would be number 2. And at number 3, probably wide receivers. But, and here's another thing. In talking about Vrabel, it's a complex thing. I feel like Vrabel, in knowing probably deep down that this is not a good team, I feel like Vrabel is not as aggressive. He's not as aggressive as he was a few years ago. I said it on Twitter yesterday. It was 4th and 2 yesterday in Tampa territory. He chose to kick a field goal, and Nick Folk missed his first field goal of the year. He chose to kick a field goal instead of go for it. And I asked on Twitter, I said, what happened to that guy who went for 2 in London against the Chargers his first year as a coach? What happened to that guy? That aggressive, going in for the kill, kind of what we saw from Dan Campbell in Detroit yesterday. What happened to that Vrabel? I tell you what I think happened. I think Vrabel knows this team's not good. I think Vrabel knows this roster's not good, and there's only so much they can do, and so I feel like that's why he's not as aggressive as he once was in coaching, because I just feel like he knows. Ain't no one can do. So I don't know, guys. I can just tell you this. the losses, they're starting to mean less and less to me. I'm starting to be bothered less and less. And I hate that because I think I've just resigned to the fact that this team's not good. And we've got to just look to the future and use the rest of this season as game film for Will Levis. Because there's just not a lot of bright spots on this team. I'm going to talk about what happened yesterday because I don't have enough voice to talk very much longer. But I am going to talk about the games from yesterday. Colts beat the Patriots 10-6 in Germany. What an awful game. Mac Jones is terrible. Oh my gosh, Mac Jones is terrible. The Colts are awful, and I don't care that they won. They're awful. The Texans over the Bengals. The Texans have a guy. They have a guy in C.J. Stroud, and Jacksonville better be watching out for Houston because I think Houston's 1 game behind them, and the Texans have already beaten the Jaguars once this year. Yikes. Steelers over the Packers, man. Steelers keep winning. They're 6-3 now. What? 6-3. The Steelers. Unreal. Unreal. Packers back to losing. Browns over the Ravens. I mean, listen. Browns might be more legit than any of us thought. Because they beat who I believe is the hottest team in the league yesterday. I mean, this Cleveland team, I don't know if I'm ready to say they're a contender in the AFC, but I mean, they're at least close. Because, wow, they look good. 49ers just absolutely killed the Jaguars, 34-3. This is the only good thing that happened yesterday. I mean, the 49ers embarrassed the Jaguars in Jacksonville. I mean, this was a thrashing. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say the Jags are frauds, but they sure looked like it yesterday. Vikings over the Saints 27-19. How about that Josh Dobbs? Josh Dobbs making unbelievable, like Mahomes-esque plays. I don't know if it's going to last, but assuming the Titans don't have a miraculous turnaround, I am getting behind the Vikings. I like Dobbs. I like the Vikings. Cardinals beat the Falcons in a heartbreaker. I don't know what to tell you about Arthur Smith, man. 3 losses in a row to a rookie quarterback in his first start, a guy who'd only been on the team 5 days in Josh Dobbs, and a guy who played in his first game back from a torn ACL in over a year. Not good. Kyler Murray looked great, and the Cardinals beat the Falcons. Falcons are kind of in trouble. Game of the day, the Lions beat the Chargers 41-38. Dan Campbell, just tremendous. Tremendous coach. And the Lions are a fun team to watch, and I think they are, at least, I mean, in my mind, they're a contender in the NFC, man. Tough loss for the Chargers. Cowboys beat the crap out of the Giants, as I knew they would. Giants are horrible. Seahawks over the Commanders 29-26. Good win for Seattle to get back on track after taking a whooping against Baltimore last week. And there you have that. And then last night, the Raiders over the Jets 16-12. And I'm glad we're talking about the Raiders, because let's compare the Raiders to the Titans. The Raiders were in a bad spot. Their season was not looking good. They fired their head coach, and now all of a sudden they've won a few games. All the team's excited, and they've experienced kind of a turnaround. Everybody's having a good time now with the Raiders. And so a lot of Titans fans look at that and they say, oh, if we would just fire Mike Vrabel, the same thing would happen here. It's not the same thing. The Raiders have a significantly better roster than the Titans do. Maybe not at quarterback, but I mean, they have Josh Jacobs. They have Devontae Adams. They have all sorts of weapons on that offense. That's why people were so frustrated with Josh McDaniels, because they felt like the Raiders had a good roster and they couldn't figure out how to win games. The Titans don't have a good roster. And then tonight, Broncos-Bills. I've already picked the Bills to win that game. So, there you go. Like I said, I would go longer today, but I'm under the weather. My voice is sounding a little rough. I don't know if you can tell. So that's it for today's episode. Titans are 3-6, and the beat goes on. I appreciate you guys tuning in for the Two Tone Talk podcast. I'll be back Friday to, I guess, preview Titans-Jags. It's going to be a good one. I'll see you then. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This is Two Tone Talk podcast. We're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. God bless you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody